welcome to Ag PhD. I'm Darren Hefty.
And I'm Brian Hefty. Thanks for joining us today. One of the worst diseases we've seen in soybeans in the last few years is sudden death syndrome. We're going to talk today about how to minimize that problem on your farm coming up this next year.
We're also seeing some farmers having great success with silage corn, and we've picked up some management tips along the way. We'll share those with you about how to get great silage corn this year on your farm.
Well, we've got an interesting Weed of the Week coming up later in the show, but first, here's today's Farm Basics.
Farm Basics is brought to you by the Liberty Link trait and Liberty herbicide from Bayer. The most reliable weed management solution, Liberty Link and Liberty herbicide are the link to efficient row crop production and sustainable weed management.
During our Farm Basics time today, we're going to talk about why farmers prepay.
Well, farmers do a lot of things differently than other businesses and other people in our country. One of the things that farmers do is they harvest their grain, and they can choose to either sell that grain this calendar year or next calendar year. They can hold it in their grain bins until they see a good price. But when they do that, they kind of screw things up. When you think about taxes, of all of a sudden, wow, the price isn't good. I'm going to hold on to it till after the first of the year and hope the price gets better. In the meantime, they've taken no income for the year. They may have all their expenses, and their taxes may look terrible.
Okay, well, here's the reason why they can do this. Farmers are unlike most other businesses in that they can run with what's called cash accounting as opposed to accrual-based accounting. What that means is unless the farmer takes cash in, it's not income yet. Unless he pays cash out, it's not an expense yet. With most other businesses, hey, if they harvested the grain and they had grain sitting on the farm, for example, if it was another business, not a farmer, they'd have to actually take that as income in the year that they got that asset. But farmers don't. And the reason why farmers don't is it basically allows the farmer to income average. Because on the farm, things get really up one year and then they go really down the next year. It's really hard to manage this if you're just looking at a short-term basis. Over the long term, hopefully it turns out good. But what we as farmers like to do is hold some of that grain back. So, hey, if we have a bad year coming up, well, then we can sell a bunch of that grain that year when we really need the income.
Well, and you just never know when that's going to happen and what those market prices are going to do. Farmers don't have any control over that. And a lot of times the planning goes into next year's crop right now. So farmers are buying seed and buying crop protection products and buying fertility now for a crop that is not even planted for several months. And so when they put that crop in, they don't know if they're going to get good weather. It's a really challenging game.
Okay, well, let's come back to what our question was. Why do farmers prepay? Well, what happens is at the end of the year, the farmer says, oh, okay, it looks like I'm going to make X. Let's just say that it's $100,000, for example. It looks like I'm going to make $100,000, and so I'm going to have to pay so much in taxes. But boy, I don't think next year's going to be very good. Last year wasn't very good. So let's do this. Let's get that down. Instead of $100,000, I want to only make $70,000. All they have to do is write a check out for prepay for certain inputs like seed or crop protection or fertilizer, and bam, just like that, they've lowered their net income. Now they are going to pay less tax. And right away, you might say, oh, how can the farmer do this? And the government is taking it in the shorts on this one. No, they're not. The government's eventually going to get their money. All that's happening is the farmer's delaying his tax bill. And in exchange for that, the government wants this, because the only way the farmer gets that delay of his tax bill is he has to put money into the system. So he's got to spend that money. Well, what happens with that money? How many times does that turn? What do they always say? Money turns about 7 times. So it's a really good thing to stimulate the economy.
I was just going to add to that. One of the key things that you said there, Brian, was farmers have to pay for specific things. So a farmer can't just say, wow, I had $100,000 in income. I'm going to write a check out for $80,000 so I only have $20,000 of income left here. No, it's not like that. You have to pay for specific things on the invoice. So yes, you could prepay $80,000, but you have to say, well, this particular seed I'm buying, and this particular crop protection product, and this particular fertilizer that I'm buying, and that's very important to the government. They aren't just going to let you, oh, I'll write a check and have no receipt to show for it. It doesn't quite work that way.
Right, and in some cases they even have to take delivery of that particular item and apply it on their farm. So there are some rules that go into these things, but we just wanted to make sure that if you hear some rumor that, oh, the farmer can get out of paying taxes, no. The farmer doesn't get out of paying taxes forever. What happens is he can delay his tax bill, but in order to do that, he's got to take his cash and spend it on something for his farm. And again, the reason why the government likes that is that money turns so many times it really stimulates the economy.
Well, fortunately or unfortunately, depending on which side of this you're on, farmers do have lots of things they need to pay for. One of the things that is going to cost farmers money this year is controlling our weed of the week. Can you identify this week's weed?
Your time is valuable. That's why you need a Hagie STS application system. Hagie STS products are designed for precision and efficiency, allowing you to make applications all season long with just one machine. Contact your Hagie rep today.
Compaction created during planting leaves thousands of dollars of potential yield in your fields. Copperhead Ag has developed the Furrow Cruiser spiked closing wheel to close the seed trench more effectively. With a unique combination of closing power and control, the Furrow Cruiser provides earlier, more even emergence and higher stand counts, returning yield potential and putting profit back in your pocket. For more information on why you should never run a traditional closing system again, visit copperheadag.com.
A farmer's attention to detail is what makes the difference. You take the time for service management because you know how vital it is to your operation. You service your field like everything else because soil sampling makes all the difference and gets the results you want. Download the app Soil Test Pro and start grid sampling today. Keep your farm growing strong. The more you test, the more you know.
Presenting the new 2016 Apache sprayer.
It was very smooth driving down the road, and especially in the field. The visibility is just excellent in it. The wide panoramic view is very beneficial in getting accurate spraying done. I've done a lot of shopping, I've done a lot of price comparing. I could see right away that for what I was getting in this machine versus the competition, this machine will do anything and everything any competitor's machine will do, and it'll definitely help my bottom line at the end of the year.
I've been involved in developing new technologies in agriculture for over 3 decades. The changing times demanded that we develop new and better equipment. Dry powder applications on seed can only be highly successful if they can be easily, effectively, and accurately applied to the target. That's where our company, Changing Times and CT Applicators, come into the picture. The innovative CT applicators are designed to give you the most accurate application of products such as talc, soybean inoculants, or other dry products. Remember, CT Applicators for the changing times.
Regalia RX biofungicide activates a plant's natural defense system, limiting the effects of disease and improving overall plant health. Regalia RX complements your fungicide program to optimize yield and strengthen return on investment. Ask your retailer for Regalia RX today.
Over the last few years, it sure seems like we've had a lot of sudden death syndrome in soybeans showing up in areas of the country that it never was before. So what can you do to manage this disease on your farm?
Well, the problem with sudden death syndrome is we don't have resistant varieties. So if we just had varieties that we could plant that completely stop sudden death syndrome, that would be awesome. Or if we had treatments that we could put on the crop. So you know what? All I have to do is put on a seed treatment or put on a foliar treatment and I don't have to worry about sudden death anymore. Well, we don't have that either. So the easy options aren't there. That means it has to get just a little bit complicated in terms of some of the cultural things that we do out in the field, and then getting down to managing that crop and the inputs we choose.
Okay, the first thing is you have probably heard, hey, plant your soybeans later and you'll have less sudden death syndrome.
You will.
Yes, and that is true. But here's the problem. When you plant later, you also give up yield. The earlier planting yields more. So here's what we suggest for you on your farm. Take your fields where you've never had any sudden death issue, you're not too worried about it, and where you're going to plant your most tolerant varieties. Plant those first, but don't delay planting. Get out there and get those planted, and then as your planting season progresses, you want to continue to go to your fields that have had the most problem last. So again, we don't suggest delaying those. You can certainly do that, but like we say, the issue is the more you delay planting, the more you sacrifice yield just from planting date. So what we would suggest instead is use some other practices on those acres to hopefully help you, even if your variety isn't necessarily super tolerant and even if your field has had issues in the past.
All right, now that is one thing to think about, is past issues. So if you have a field that has had sudden death syndrome in the past, use crop rotation. So if you're in a situation where, hey, I can rotate away to a crop like corn or wheat where sudden death syndrome is not going to be a problem for me, do it. that's a good thing. Even a year off of that field is a good thing for you. If you're in continuous soybeans, you're going to take a lot more risk of having an increase in sudden death syndrome pressure in your field. So crop rotation is a good thing for you. Tillage can help a little bit. I don't think it's the biggest answer. To me, a bigger cultural answer may be drainage. Where we're seeing more sudden death syndrome is in poorly drained, heavier ground. And not always, it can be in different types of ground. But if you've got poor drainage, you're going to see more issues with fusarium-caused diseases like sudden death syndrome. So avoid that. Improve your drainage. And you may say, well, I already have pattern tile out there. I've got drainage. No, you don't. You've got 100-foot spacing or you got 50-foot spacing. They're too wide and you're still seeing problems in between. So you may have to narrow it up. Or you say, well, I've got kind of rolly ground. I really shouldn't have to narrow it up. Maybe you do just in those lower spots, just in those poorly drained lower areas where water sits a little bit more. Put more tile in that spot. Yeah, you may not have to on the sandy hill or the well-drained hills, but in the low spots you do.
Earlier, Darren said that seed treatments aren't a perfect option, but at least now we have some seed treatments that are an option. Myrtec seems to so far be okay, but the better choice does seem to be Alivo, and you can certainly look in your area at information there and data there in your area what's really panned out, but it looks to us like Alivo is a pretty good option. Now, the only thing is Alivo costs more than Myrtec, so you can weigh those things out. But either way, you're not going to get 100% perfect control on sudden death syndrome, but it definitely reduces your risk. So that's something you can look at going into this coming year.
There's another seed treatment that we should talk about too, and it's kind of a way around sudden death syndrome. It's Chloriva. What Chloriva does is it stops the nematodes. And when we get nematode feeding in the roots, we have more issues with sudden death syndrome and other diseases. So we're seeing a reduction in sudden death syndrome in fields where guys are using Chloriva. So we see many guys using Chloriva Complete and adding some Myrtec in there, and they seem to be doing a pretty good job. But again, as we said, it's not the total answer. But hey, if you're thinking about, I've got some nematode pressure, I may try that. An improvement in sudden death syndrome could be another benefit that you get.
All right, I got two more suggestions for you. Number one, use a fungicide. Fortix actually has a suppression label on sudden death syndrome, so that's an option. And you know, it just flat out means having better overall plant health. So my option number two for you is fertility. If you have a good fertility program, you should have a healthier plant that's more tolerant of diseases. I think about micronutrients especially, like copper, for example. And I have no data yet to support this, but I think over time we'll find out that, hey, if I've fed my crop well, I have less chance for sudden death syndrome. But I come back to copper because copper is kind of known as the disease nutrient. Well, do you have good copper levels in your soil? Might be something for you to look at. Copper, the other micronutrients, and then, you know, obviously potassium, phosphorus, all those things. Feed your plant well. It's going to be more tolerant to all diseases.
All right, and speaking of tolerance, when we look at soybean varieties, the breeders have gotten some great data over the last 10 years, unfortunately, because that means we've got lots of pressure out in the fields. But they've gotten some great data and they made some excellent selections. And we're finding families now that have much better tolerance to sudden death syndrome. So make sure you ask your seed dealer about this, because in any seed dealer's lineup, there's going to be some numbers that aren't very good on sudden death and others that are really pretty tolerant. So take those tolerant ones, as Brian said, put them as the early part of your program, so maybe your full season varieties that get planted first. Then later on, you can work in some of those products that maybe don't have as good a tolerance, but they're really nice racehorse yielding varieties. You can save them, plant them at the end of your soybean planting. And again, we don't recommend delaying your planting window. If you're saying, normally I plant all my beans between May 1st and May 10th, great. Plant your sudden death syndrome fields last. Start with your fields where you don't have a problem first on May 1st. Then maybe by the time you get to May 8th, 9th, and 10th, you can plant those fields that you have some problems here and there.
Yep, at least we do have some options now for sudden death syndrome. We know better how to manage this program, so just take advantage of some of those things on your farm. Well, another thing you're going to want to do if you want to have good yields, period, is control our weed of the week. Can you identify this week's weed?
When we use agriculture liquid, we'll usually end up with 2.7 to 3 pounds a gain per animal a day. We had 100 head out on a pasture this last fall that gained at 2.7. You know, they made about $450. We usually get about a 10-day start. It's ready 10 days early, and we're grazing and they're waiting and we're gaining.
Being a farmer means securing your land and livelihood for the future. Harvest Solutions from Capello, USA have the grit to get you there. Our product lines for corn, sunflowers, and forage are designed for efficiency and longevity, preventing harvest loss while minimizing maintenance and downtime. To do everything you can to advance your farmland to the next generation, call us at 855-CAPELLO or visit us at capellousa.com. Capello USA, Italian craftsmanship, American grit.
I choose Stein.
I choose service.
I choose results.
I choose research.
I choose genetics.
I choose Stein.
At Stein, we have products that are second to none.
You know, Stein has a background of the highest yielding genetics in the marketplace.
They are a world-class leader in genetics.
We push the limits, we try new things, we develop genetics, all designed to benefit the farmer.
I choose Stein because Stein has yield.
With the success of the Case IH Steiger Quad Track and Magnum Road Track tractors, it's no secret why Case IH is the leader of the track. So it wasn't surprising when the competition started imitating us. But only Case IH offers a 5-axle design to give you a smoother ride, more power to the ground, with less berming and compaction. Still, we're flattered. In fact, if we weren't already red, we'd be blushing.
There are no marks of conflict lining this landscape. No echoes of economic hardship. Just the unmistakable murmur of Mother Nature's hand. In the perennial quest to outperform, ensure your crop gets the nutrients it craves with a Veil Phosphorus Fertilizer Enhancer. Nothing helps protect your investment more, so you can grow confidently no matter what comes your way. Avail. Hold your ground.
All right, so when Darren and I were growing up on the farm and we had livestock, you know what went to silage? The worst corn possible. So every year we look at, all right, what are our best fields? Where are the worst possible spots? Well, let's take the worst spots, let's chop those. We get some acres out of the way, it's done, and whatever, the livestock are gonna eat it, who cares? But here's the whole thing. You wanna have not just great crop, you wanna have great livestock too. And anybody who's gonna raise great livestock knows you have to have great feed going into the great livestock, otherwise they aren't great livestock. They don't have your rate of gain as what you're looking for, and they aren't going to be as healthy as what you're looking for. So here's our whole point with this silage corn thing. And it just depends on which side of this you're on. If you're just a crop farmer, you're selling it off for silage, you know, that's one thing. Maybe you can't get much of a premium for good quality silage. But hey, if you're a livestock producer and that's your main job and you've got corn on your farm, what we're trying to tell you here is we really encourage you, start looking at how to raise the best, healthiest corn, and then you're going to have the best, healthiest livestock.
If you've thought of silage as not a very high input crop, you're totally wrong. We have to treat it just like we would treat corn, and really even a little bit more. So when we think about getting off to a good start with silage, we like to have good growth, and using something like Rise Up Smart Grass early in the season has shown to put more height on that crop. Using starter fertilizer is another thing that shows good early growth. Now, it doesn't always add up to more corn, but if you get better early growth, a little wider leaf, that could very well add up to more tonnage every year for you on the farm.
Yeah, when you're talking about that too, I think about biologicals like quick rits. Anything that gets that crop off to a great start is a plus. Also, you want to take a look at how do I raise the best, healthiest corn? Well, you've got to have the right nutrients. And it's not just the right nutrients for the corn crop, it's the right nutrients to go into your livestock. Just think about what your supplements are for your cattle. What does that tell you about the crop that you're feeding them? I'm just trying to say, hey, if you have the right levels of potassium and phosphorus in the field, that's great, but let's also think about all those different micronutrients out there. The whole point is feed your field, feed your crop. That's going to feed your livestock even better.
Okay, another thing is insect control. Now I realize many people are trying to cut back on their expenses on the farm. Look at the different rootworm products. If you don't want to buy the trait, that's fine. You can put a generic Capture product out, or even name brand Capture LFR if you want to use the good stuff. Put it right in the furrow and do an excellent job controlling your corn rootworm and other insects, and hardly spend any money. The prices on liquid insecticides have come down tremendously in the last few years.
Well, the other area where prices have come down is fungicide. You can now get a half rate of a good quality fungicide for $3 to $4 an acre. You can afford fungicide in a lot of cases, and it's going to help make your plants overall healthier, and all you have to do is throw it right in with your starter fertilizer, or at the time of starter fertilizer, try to keep it separate, or throw it in with your post-emerge herbicide. Speaking of herbicides too, we just really encourage you, have good weed control. I don't care what crop you're raising. Now, if you want to let weeds go late in the season in silage corn, it's not that big a deal. In fact, that might be your cover crop.
I don't agree with that. I don't like that at all.
The point is, if you have great weed control in any corn until the time the corn is a foot tall, beyond that, it's not as big a deal for this year. Now, you'll have more weed seeds in the ground in the future, but I'm just trying to say, hey, if you're looking to cut money, don't do it out of your herbicide program if you're going to have weeds early in the season. That'll really hurt your yield and hurt your tonnage. Well, another thing that's always important for yield, and I don't care what crop it is great weed control, especially if you've got our Weed of the Week. We'll tell you how to stop it next.
The Weed of the Week is sponsored by the Enlist Weed Control System from Dow AgroSciences, a new herbicide and trait system that will build on glyphosate.
Farming isn't just in the land, it's in you. Take control of weeds like never before. Enlist builds on the Roundup Ready system, combining proven control of a new 2,4-D and glyphosate in Enlist Duo herbicide. Protect what matters without changing the way you farm. Talk to your seed or crop protection supplier today.
Our Weed of the Week is Marshelder.
Well, Marshelder is one of those weeds that's oftentimes found in areas that are a little bit wetter. Right behind us where we're filming, there's a little valley, and I remember as a kid, that was the first place I ever saw Marshelder in my life. It was an area that, you know what, in the middle of the summer, it was still a little damp out there. And Marshelder can grow big. It's a member of the sunflower family. Remember some of those first Marshelder that I went after in this low area were way taller than me. Now, granted, I was a kid at the time, but you can see Marshelder get 8 feet tall or maybe even a little bit better. With Marshelder, one of the differentiating features that I saw, even though it's a member of the sunflower family, it doesn't have that bristly stem like sunflower does. It's got a smooth stem to it. So if you're looking at a weed that kind of looks like a cross between a giant ragweed and a sunflower, it's probably Marshelder, and if it's got that smooth stem, that's a for sure.
Darren mentioned low, wet areas with Marshelder. Like we always say, the best weed killer out there is free. It's called crop canopy. So you have to do everything possible to raise the best crop, and that'll choke out Marshelder in a lot of cases. So if it is a low wet area, get it tiled, improve the drainage, do the right things for fertility, and overall, hey, Marshelder will be less of an issue. Now, if you've got a Marshelder problem on your farm, let's talk about how to stop it in corn, soybeans, and wheat.
Okay, first of all, it is a yield-robbing weed. It is a human allergen when that thing starts pollinating, and also Marshelder has been known to be toxic to cattle. It's even been credited for causing some abortion in cattle if they eat lots of it, so it's a weed we want to get under control. In corn, I treat it very much like a sunflower type of weed. Start out with a pre-emerge herbicide. You can use something like Sure Start or Triple Flex. I really like Verdict pre-emerge. Post-emerge Status does a nice job, but also the HPPDs, Callisto, Loudus, Impact, Armazon, will do a nice job. You can throw a half pound of atrazine where a rotation allows.
All right, in soybeans, I really like going with something like Authority MTZ. It's that metribuzin that's going to have the most activity for you. Our 3 pre-program, the yellow isn't going to do much for Marshelder, so you got to come post-emerge. Fortunately, Roundup is real good on Marshelder yet. Haven't seen resistance issues. Other than that, what do you suggest?
Liberty's very good too.
Yep.
Then you can use something like First Rate or Pursuit or Raptor, tank mixed with your post-emerge product. You won't get as much activity pre out of those on Marshelder, but post they're fairly effective.
All right, turning to wheat, sharpen down and come with Husky post-emerge. That should do it for you in wheat.
Well, that's all the time we have for this week's weed, but Iron Talk is coming up next.
There are trillions of hardworking microbes right beneath your feet. Today, Monsanto BioAg is harnessing the power of microbes, creating microscopic farmhands that help plants access nutrients, enhance root and shoot growth, and handle stressful conditions throughout the season, protecting and maximizing your yield potential. We're turning 500 trillion microbes into 500 trillion new farmhands, ready for work. Nature, it's powerful technology.
for lower costs, higher production, Mantico Agri leads with versatility unmatched. Twister is the vertical tillage unit for no-till as well as conventional tillage. Avoid costly downtime with Twister's ease of maintenance. Its unique Coulter suspension allows it to follow the contour of the field yet remain forgiving in rocks. Our hydraulically adjustable Coulter angles mean you never leave the cab, making residue management easier, more efficient. Spring or fall, the Mantico Twister is the new leader. Check with your local dealer or visit manticoagri.com.
Introducing the SoilMax ZD48, the newest addition to the SoilMax Gold Digger lineup. The first plow designed for smaller class tractors, the ZD48 has been tested on tractors weighing between 10,000 and 16,000 pounds with excellent results. Designed for row crop farms, vineyards, irrigation, and specialty crop farms. The SoilMax ZD48 will install tile up to 48 inches deep as well as install 3 or 4-inch tile. The ZD48 truly opens up the world of tile installation to more farms than ever before.
Precision in grain moisture management can save you thousands in spoilage and elevator docks. The AgriDry Bullseye Controller monitors temperature and grain moisture and is available for all dryer makes and models. Plus, our AD-Link feature gives you 24/7 remote monitoring and allows you to control your dryer wherever you are. Call us today for more information.
Dry Load Store, 1-855 AgriDry.
I trust Agro Liquid because I've seen the results and they're positive and they work on my farm, they work in my environment. When I started farming, we was farming around 125 acres and now we're up to around 1,700 acres. I think I was recognized as the Tennessee Young Farmer by being a leader in the community and also being innovative. I'm always looking for new products, but I got to make sure that those products are sustainable. I've got a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old and I would love for them to farm this land.
You need to attend a 2016 Ag PhD Winter Workshop. Even if you have regularly attended Ag PhD Winter Workshops in the past, you won't want to miss this year's events. We cover a wide variety of topics at our agronomy workshops, soils clinics, and tiling clinics. These events are free, but not only that, at most of our events we'll feed you well and send you home with a great agronomy book and lots of ideas you can try on your own farm. Please check out agphd.com for the complete winter schedule of events that start January 6th and run through the end of February.
Iron Talk is brought to you by Case IH.
The AFS Connect Farm Management System from Case IH connects you, and only you, to the information you need most from your equipment, from anywhere, at any time. AFS Connect, only from Case IH.
Maintenance throughout the year is important, especially on equipment like tractors and combines. In today's Iron Talk, we'll focus on the hydraulic system with some tips that can help you down the road. Let's be honest, if you notice that you need some hydraulic fluid in a piece of machinery that's otherwise ready to go to the field right now, what do? Well, it's a safe bet that you grab whatever's in the shop, top off your hydraulic fluid, and get to the field. While you may not notice a problem right away, brake chatter, hydraulic fluid foaming, or other problems could show up down the road. Since there are so many things that your hydraulic system will do, so many functions it must perform in variable weather conditions throughout the whole year, the best place to start is with the manufacturer's recommended fluid. Here are some other steps to keeping your system up to par. Use the right fluid always, so have it on hand. Next, fix leaks, even the tiny ones, right away to keep dirt and other contaminants out. Next, use the manufacturer's filters to ensure the best fit and performance. Then change hydraulic fluid at regular intervals. Finally, inspect the hydraulic fluid in between changes to avoid surprises. So keep your hydraulic systems on the top of your mind this year. With a little effort, you can avoid breakdowns and achieve peak performance throughout the life of your machines. That's all for today's Iron Talk, and now back to the show.
Closed captioning for Ag PhD is sponsored by Norwood Sales.
On your farm, you need speed and year-round effectiveness in your tillage program. The Quick Till from Norwood Sales allows you to move quickly through your fields, maximizing time and improving yield. Constructed of heavy-duty materials, the Quick Till is ideal for both spring and fall applications, from preparing a healthy seedbed early in the season to breaking up corn residue after harvest. For more information about how a Quick Till can improve fields on your farm, call Norwood Sales today.
That's all the time we have for today's show, but before we go, I want to invite you to tune in for more agronomic information to the Ag PhD radio show. You'll find us at 2 p.m. and 11 p.m. Central each weekday on Sirius XM channel 147.
And don't miss the next Ag PhD TV show. We'll have another Weed of the Week, a Farm Basics Iron Talk, and a whole lot more. I'm Darren Hefty.
And I'm Brian Hefty. Thanks for watching Ag PhD.
A healthy soil helps to keep our air and water clean while providing a medium for productive crops, pastures, and shelter belts. It takes good management practices and care to accomplish this. To learn more about how farmers are improving the health of their soils, visit rnmf.org.